This is about you, isn't it? Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. You know, I don't get offended too easily. Call me fat if you want to. Tell me I'm an idiot. Make fun of my small penis. You're probably right. But when you treat me like an idiot, that goes too far. Also, I'm average. Welcome to another episode of Kevin Watches a Movie You've Never Heard of and Will Never Watch. Title right here. Alien Invasion is a 2023 British produced sci fi horror film. It has a writer and director who aren't worth mentioning, as well as a cast of actresses and actors. The title is so generic that I couldn't actually find a trailer for this movie on YouTube. It's for $3.99 to rent and $9.99 to buy, at least on Vudu. I got it off of Hoopla for free, which is the only possible way I would recommend watching this if you hated yourself enough to watch this. The production company involved in this movie appears to have a lot of the same types of movies from what I could determine on IMDb. They're all science fiction, horror, and erotic thriller films that have heavily photoshopped cover art that often lies about the content of the film. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen them. They're the types of cover art images that you know are going to be pathetic and extremely low budget attempts at making a movie. This movie is really no exception. This feels like they may be attempting to create a British version of Asylum, honestly. This movie is an illogical and low budget ripoff of Signs, Alien, and Halloween. Um, a guy has an alien egg, and his neighbor and her young adult friends break into his house for no real reason. The egg hatches. The alien is immediately full grown and starts killing everyone in what can only be described as the laziest slasher scenes ever filmed. Even though there is a saltwater pool at the neighbor's house, which the young adults broke into and they were swimming at earlier, or they were invited, like that was a little weird. Um, and from that pool, they determine that salt water hurts the aliens. Even then, they run to the church to find one of the girl's dads. That girl's dad is a preacher who used to be a boxer, and we get the absolute best and worst scene in the entire film when the preacher tries to box the alien. He gets killed. The remaining adults run away. One more is killed, and then an alien spacecraft shows up. This is the alien invasion, the title promised, and the movie abruptly ends. The few positives before we really dive into how horrible this movie is. I did learn from this movie that holy water has salt water in it. I didn't know that. I didn't need to know that, but it was, I guess, it's a positive takeaway. Some of the actresses are okay, especially for the material given. One of them even seems to be able to cry realistically, which is impressive. So we're out of the positives after 5 sentences. The two older male actors, scientist neighbor, ex-boxer, preacher dad, are definitely the worst of the entire cast. I think it would be the case regardless of the dialogue they were provided. The entire cast and production team all seem to be in the same types of movies as this one. Some of them are even in that really bad Winnie the Pooh movie from earlier this year, the Winnie the Pooh horror film. This movie is really bad, in not in a fun way. It's also only 73 minutes, and it's actually only 70 minutes of plot, if you want to even call it that, if you subtract the credits. But it feels interminable. For such a short film, the edit of this film has no energy. This is probably a result of the actual filming providing little to no interesting material for the editor. I'm sure the editor was fairly cheap and probably not super experienced also. The alien is a horrible xenomorph ripoff. There are moments where it is CGI and it is laughably bad CGI. One moment the animation has it roaring or something, but there's no sound effects to match. Other moments it's a guy in a suit and you can obviously see the mask's neck overlapping the suit neck. Really poorly handled and shot. The rest of the CGI is bad in the film. even for a project with this low of a budget, the alien spacecraft that shows up at the end has artifacts in it that kind of they're leading me to believe that it was AI generated. The CGI blood that shows up, what little blood there is actually in this movie, it looks like it was thrown against a pane of glass a few inches away from the fall. It doesn't look like it's actual splatter connecting to something physical. The film tries to do a few day for night shots. I'm sure for such a low budget production, their schedule was really limited, and this is a common thing for a lot of movies to do. Mad Max Fury Road does it. Um, a lot of movies do this. Um, but in this movie, you can tell it was an extremely sunny day because of the well-defined shadows on the ground. To do this properly, you have to wait for a cloudy day, um, or so you don't have the really obvious shadow breaks in your frame. Um, or you can shoot on a sunny day and you can just film it in such a way that you aren't capturing those really harsh shadow lines. There was one moment when a character was getting chased down a hallway. It was dark, not like ridiculously dark, but it was like a horror movie at night dark. You could still see what was happening. But the character comes around the end of the hallway, I think turned left, and to the right of him, very obviously in frame, because it was very well lit in the background, is another hallway with production garbage in the background. Um, they just had this spotlight in the background on trash that they didn't clean up in the hallway. What the hell, guys? That's almost worse than a boom mic. At one point at the end of the movie, one of the characters says, "Get away from her, you bitch." This is an obvious nod to Aliens, but with a movie this horrible, it just feels like an unoriginal ripoff.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Obviously, I mentioned earlier that the the creature, the alien design is obviously an alien ripoff. Um, but then the secondary poster on IMDb for this movie is the Russian version, which even has an actual xenomorph on it. The entire logic around how they're going to defeat the alien is just stupid. They state that the alien is weak against salt water because it gets splashed in the pool area, and so someone mentions that they should take it to the ocean, but they decide to go to the church instead. Um, I get that they probably didn't own the pool and they didn't want to have some messy production issues having this creature dissolve in the pool. But you could have done, I mean, with all the other shitty CGI, you could have done some shitty CGI here and kind of had an It Follows type moment at the end of your film, which, hey, how are they going to lure it in? But no, you had to have a boxing match between a preacher and an alien. But this leads to something which to me is the epitome of bad screenwriting, which is poor to no research. Now, in a movie about an alien invasion, you may be wondering how much research can one person do? We've never been invaded by aliens. I mean, I'm sure there's some websites that would say we have, but we never really have. Um, but take, for instance, the idea that salt water is what hurts the alien. Um, would have to be the salt or the water. Um, I didn't take any chemistry in it all of my years of education, but I do know how to do a basic internet search, which led me to a site that states salt does not react with the solvent water, so no chemical reaction occurs. If you remove the solvent, the original compound remains, which means if you heat the salt water up into turns into steam, right? You're left with salt. Um, that will still remain. You, this is pretty common if you've ever seen a movie about survivors on an island. I think Mythbusters did this, where you have to capture salt water, but you have to remove the salt from the water, and so you actually remove the water from the salt is how you actually do it. So this tells me that the alien, if I was to take this rationally, the alien either reacts to the water or the salt. The combination of the two is nothing remarkable and does nothing to produce any new chemicals. This took me 2 minutes to look up. You could have had a character who knew a little bit about chemistry and said, oh, it's either the water or the salt. There's water and salt in the house. Let's test this out and we can fight this alien. You could have done something interesting with that. Um, I would recommend doing the salt because the water is just a complete science ripoff. Also, the scientist states that the alien is from the planet or star of Lacerta. Lacerta, which is Latin for lizard, is a constellation, not a star or a planet. Some of the stars inside the constellation have the designation of Lacertae, which is the Latin pluralization of the form or of the word Lacerta. This took me 5 minutes to look up, including the amount of time it took to learn a little bit of Latin. And they use this to call the alien Lacerta. That's the name of the alien, um, which is fine. But you could have said it was from a planet called Lacertae Beta or Lacertae Alpha or something like that. Would have just made a little bit more sense. It's stupid things like this in the movies. These lazy, hackneyed writing techniques where you assume your audience is too stupid to know any better, and that's what I really hate. It's okay and sometimes understandable during the course of a movie as it's shot and as it's edited, where plot holes occur and actors deliver lines you wrote horribly or they rewrite lines and it just doesn't come across well. Um, but little details like this, take your time and do more than a single draft of your stupid script. This movie is full of moments like this, where throughout the writing, pre-production, filming, and editing of this movie, it feels like most of the people involved have a level of contempt and disdain for the audience. This is to the point where it's almost as though they aren't even trying. And sure, this movie isn't lying to the audience and trying to build some sort of fake credibility like that movie Bezos that I reviewed earlier this year, but it is insulting the audience by being completely lazy production on virtually every level. And to add sadness on top of that, some of the actresses seem to actually care and try, but they're stuck in this dog shit piece of movie. This movie treats the audience like they're an idiot. Hey, this is editing Kevin after a few beers. So, thank you guys for watching this video. Check back in next episode, hopefully, for Hydro Man Ran. We'll be doing. What will we be doing? We'll be doing something. Oh, we'll be doing Memento and Skyrim for our standard episodes. And then after that, thanks to everyone for the subscribing. We'll be doing our Adam Sandler analysis. Three great films that he did and three of his worst films. I believe the poll is closed, so no more voting. I think we are doing the Ridiculous Six as his third bad film. Thank you everyone who voted in that. So stay tuned. We got a lot planned for the future. Thanks for supporting the channel so far, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.